Hey there. I can't hear you. Unmute. Okay. Okay, we got some hiccups, and I think the hiccups are all on my end in the sense that I set up the meeting and then I've got like a couple of duplicates. I think they're duplicates, but they're not duplicates. So I got people in different rooms, so to speak. Because I've been texting with people trying to get them
so I think this is the original link you sent, this room.
Yeah, and after we do this one, I am going to go in and delete them out and just get one going forward so that I know what I am doing. Oh, shoot. What's that?
I said that remains to be seen.
Hey, okay, I'm handicapped, right?
Yeah. That time my wife quit picking on the cripple.
I was wondering why you always misspelled your words.
Hey, I sit there and type it. It's all going down perfect in my head. I can't be held accountable for what these fingers do or don't do. Well, we're gonna go with what we got here. It's recording, and I'll just post it to the YouTube page, and people can watch it from there.
Cool.
So, just a little heads up. The other individual here, Brett, is Craig. He had an accident. There she is. He had an accident almost 3 months ago, and he's missing 10 fingers or parts of 10.
So, yeah, 7 fingers actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Parts of 7.
Okay, close. And so he's in the healing process. We have another young lady, which is my therapy buddy, Paula. We went through 8 months of therapy together, PT, pain and trauma. And we will this is Brett Blanchard, and he is a clinical medical counselor. And he's going to give us a little discussion, and we will have some questions at the end. Anyone can chat. So if you guys just mute for the time being, and I think I will too, just so my 4-legged child, if it goes crazy, doesn't ruin things for the time being. Okay. And we will go with Brett.
All right. Awesome. Hi, nice to meet everybody. Yeah, my 4-legged creatures may show up here and there. So there's several cats running around here. I may be suddenly climbed at any given moment. So if I scream, that's what's going on. All right. So Jeff asked me to kind of come in. I'm a clinical mental health counselor. So Jeff asked me to come in and kind of talk a little bit about anxiety and working with different stuff, kind of specifically with the nervous system and things like that, different approaches, different ways to go into that. So I'm just going to kind of give a general different thing. Not everything works for everybody. So there's no like one thing that's going to be, oh my gosh, works for everybody. There's going to be a bunch of different things, and you may find that you actually need a little bit of this, a little bit of that, depending on where you're at and what's going on with you. And then we'll kind of talk about that. I'm going to try to demonstrate a couple things here too. So bear with me. I'm at my house in my music room, so it's not, a clinical setting, but also as a precursor, as a professional, these things that I'm going to talk about, you can try them if you want. My suggestion is if you have anxiety or any kind of emotional disturbance to a level that it is actually causing distress in your life, loss of a job, bad relationships, can't get sleep, that type of stuff, that you go seek professional help. This is kind of me sidelining off of my job. So I can't vouch for that as far as professionality, but I can give you some tools that they would give you. If you find these things work for you, I'd say go talk to your counselor about it. Okay, and anytime anybody has any questions, feel free to stop me, ask a question, want me to clarify something, go for it. I would appreciate that. It gives me a chance to catch my breath. Okay, so as far as anxiety, and I guess we're going to focus more on anxiety. Jeff had said specifically anxiety as opposed to depression. That's kind of the other spectrum. Usually mood disorders kind of fall in those two broad categories of anxiety and depression. A lot of times they're comorbid, or they're happening at the same time, or one leads into the other. But we're going to specifically talk about anxiety. There are a couple different approaches to tackle anxiety. There's one called top down and one called bottom up. And what that means is the top down, if you look at the way that our nervous system, our bodies and our brains are built, top down means that I'm going to go with my thinking function, my executive functioning, and my thought process. What's happening in my mind? What am I thinking about what's happening? How do I remember it? How do I process it? And what does that thought process do to my nervous system that creates anxiety? And then the other approach is a bottom up, where the belief is that anxiety and events are, oh, hi, baby. There's anxiety is stored in the body and somatically. And so what you want to do is work with anxiety on a body level. So you approach it from the nervous system of calming the body down and then working up to what's going on in the mind. Right now, the trend in psychology is to focus on a bottom-up theory. They're finding that anxiety, traumas, any kind of events and things like that are stored in the physical body and the nervous system more so, and that's more powerful than what we're thinking about it. But at the same time, there's a tendency to just, okay, we're going to just get rid of all the CBT that's worked for years and all the thought processes and the way we think about it. And we're going to can that. And we're just going to go have these people do yoga, right? That's good for, doing yoga is awesome, right? Or some kind of body movement. Those are great. Or some kind of body movement therapy, some kind of somatic expression is great stuff. I do suggest doing that, but don't throw away the idea of what you're doing in your mind about it. How are you thinking about it? That stuff's still super important. So even though they're discovering it's more this than this, it's still this. If that makes sense. So I'm going to talk a little bit about top-down approaches as well as bottom-up approaches, and just kind of go into each one a little bit and kind of talk in general about it. So top-up approaches are like cognitive behavioral therapy. So top-up is what I'm thinking in my mind. One of the big things to work on is just distracting my mind, right? The more I focus on something, the more that I can create pain in my mind. I forget how much it is. I think it's like 85% of the pain that we have is actually created by our mind and the way we think about it, which is a lot, right? So I'll give you an example. My wife's a master esthetician, and I don't know if you know what that is. It's she does all the girl stuff, facials, dermabrasions, chemical peels, lash extensions, all that kind of stuff, waxing. And so she waxed me when I got all my tattoos during my midlife crisis and all that kind of stuff. But she waxed the back of my neck, and I got used to it everywhere else on my body, after the beginning, but I could never get used to this back of the neck one. And so what she would do is she would, she'd put the wax on, and it'd be hot. She'd rub it on there, and then she's cooling it off. And the whole time I'm just like, oh God, this is gonna hurt. It's gonna sting. And then she's going after it. She's picking at it to kind of pull it off, and then I'm just doing this. And then she didn't even pull it off. And she's like, what's wrong with you? Why are you, you're cringing so much? I go, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. And then she'd rip it off, of course, and it hurt. It felt like being whipped by a whip. And then I started thinking about that, and I started going, hey, why am I not using mindfulness to deal with this pain? Right? I'm creating. You ever heard the statement, "Anticipation of death is worse than death itself"? I think I got that from a Steven Seagal movie, but forgive me. So the anticipation of the pain creates pain, right? And so what I started doing is I started just, hey, I need to use mindfulness when she waxes the back of my neck. So what I did is I just brought my mind from that future pain and just into the now and noticing what's happening now. So as she's putting the wax on the back of my neck, I'm just like, okay, she's putting it on. Oh, it feels kind of warm. Actually feels kind of good. It's just kind of relaxing. Now she's drying it, and then she's picking at it. And I could feel the anticipation, the anxiety just a little bit there, but not as bad as before. Oh yeah, she's picking it. She's got to do that to get a hold of it. And she'd rip it off, and it would hurt for a moment, but then it would be okay. And I would say, for me, subjectively, if the other way, when I was anticipating it and stuff, man, it was a 10. It was definitely a 10. But with
Brett,
me, yeah.
is that kind of like when some folks will turn away when they're getting a shot and it doesn't
Mhm.
hurt, versus watching you get the shot where it seems like it hurts more just because you're watching it, even though it is the same either way, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And so that's where our mind creates the pain, right? Our mind starts to create and anticipate that, and it makes it far, far worse. Yeah, I would say definitely for me on my neck, when I was anticipating, it was a 10. But when I started to use that mindfulness technique and just kind of distracting my mind with kind of what's going on now, it was about a 3. Still painful, but nowhere near as bad, right? A 10 and a 3, give me the 3 any day. And so those are different. That's a mindfulness kind of approach. One of the things you can use for mindfulness and kind of a mindfulness CBT combination is to say things like, I notice that I'm having the feeling that this, or I notice that I'm having the thought that this is going to be really painful, right? So it's kind of like this thought process that kind of happens. I notice that I'm feeling depressed, right? And what it does is it creates like a buffer in your mind. It kind of separates you from the mind. It's almost like a dissociation. Someone who's dissociative, who separates themselves from the pain, they kind of come up here from the pain, so they can float in this area where the pain's kind of down there. I notice that I'm feeling depressed, or I notice that I'm feeling pain, and it creates a little bit of space to rest. And although some people do this, so dissociation in general is not something that you want to happen. It's a coping mechanism that happens naturally for people that are traumatized, but you can actually use it as a tool consciously to separate yourself from stuff like that. Now, the thing is, like, if say that the pain you're separating yourself from is emotional pain, a trauma, something like that, it's totally okay for me to go, hey, you know what? I can't deal with this right now. I'm going to put this over in this box. There's a thing called a container exercise. I'm going to put this thing over in this like box. I imagine like a safe or a treasure chest with a lock on it. I'm going to pack all that trauma and all that stuff over here. I'm not going to think about it. I'm going to lock it up and I'm going to push it off over here. I'm going to deal with it later, because right now I got to function. I got to go to work. I got to do this, right? I got to do life. I got to take care of my kids. I do not have time to have this bother me. Now, but what you're doing though is some people think that, oh, I'm going to just do that. And then I'm going to take that safe. I'm going to lock it up. I'm going to wrap chains around it and I'm going to push it off into the ocean. And I'm never going to think about it again. I'm just going to not deal with it, right? Thing is though, is that safe in that ocean, even if it's all the way down the bottom of the ocean, it's still in your mind. It's not going anywhere. You can't get away from it. You can't push it all the way away. And so you can use this technique, but what you want to do is also recognize that, hey, yeah, I'm gonna put all this stuff in this box. I'm gonna pack it away, push it over here, but I am gonna bring it out later when I got time to deal with it. I am gonna go talk to that person and say, hey, yeah, this is going on. Help me process through this, because you want to work through it, if that makes sense. Okay, so those are some top-up approaches. A couple others. Let's talk about assumptions. Has anybody read 4 Agreements? like McGilvery's. Okay, yeah. So in there, one of the agreements is don't make assumptions, right? And I just I get his approach and what he talks about in it. I just hate the wording of that, because if you have a human brain, you can't not make assumptions, right? It's impossible if you're fully functioning human brain. And the reason why is we have this wonderful part of our brain called the amygdala that likes to let us know what to be afraid of and what to pay attention to so that we survive, right? And it's a good thing, although it's not connected up to our executive functioning, our logic very well. So it offers up some pretty crazy ideas of what we need to be afraid of and what's survival portent stuff. And so, and it makes assumptions, right? So what we do is we see something, we see an activity or behavior happen. And then what we do is our brain will assign meaning to that, right? So if I see somebody running down the street with two guns and they're shooting guns in the air, right? My brain goes, what the hell's going on? Right? Is this guy going crazy? Is there something I need to be worried about? Are we being attacked? Is this guy going to attack me? There's all these thought processes, and it's impossible to stop that, right? So you can't not make assumptions. You can check your assumptions and verify your assumptions, which is what you want to do. And this stuff can do necessarily, it doesn't have to be like some extreme example like that. That's probably a really bad example. This can even be in my relationship. Like say my wife, I come home and my wife's not feeling good and she's not talking to me and she's kind of distant. My brain starts going, oh my gosh, what's wrong? Did I do something? Am I in trouble? Right? We kind of turn it about us, in the beginning, or something else happened. Did something happen in the family? I start to make all these assumptions, and these negative assumptions can cause me to start to create anxiety. And so two things that you want to do whenever you have an assumption, and I guess, let me back up real quick. One of the ways to tell that this is happening and your barometer for, hey, is my thought process creating anxiety for me, is that if all of a sudden you start to feel uneasy, you start to feel like, something's not right. I come home and my wife says or does something and I start to kind of feel uneasy or uncomfortable. That's my barometer that I want to check my assumptions. Something's happening that's causing me some kind of anxiety or feeling. So, and then once I get that idea, then what I want to do is do two things. One's called lateral thinking, and then the next one is verifying. So lateral thinking is kind of sidestepping and not going in a linear path with the first assumption, right? So if my first assumption is the guy running down the street, shooting his guns off in the air, my first assumption is, oh shit, this guy's coming to shoot me, right? That's my worst fear. So my amygdala's got to pop that thought into mind, right? And if I just act in a linear line with that, oh my gosh, this guy's coming to shoot me, I pull out my concealed carry and I drop this guy right there in the street, right? Then I find out later that this guy, it's 4th of July and I forgot about it. And this guy's just kind of being a little too enthusiastic and had a little bit too much to drink. And now I'm in prison, right? Not good. Right? So you can't go in that linear line. Or if I assume that my wife says something or that she's mad at me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's upset because I didn't take the garbage out today, right? So instead of going in there, I go with that linear thought and I go, oh my God, I'll take the garbage out. Quit being like that, right? I make the problem worse. I'm acting as if my assumption is true. And so what I want to do is I want to stop myself and then think laterally. So my first assumption is, oh my gosh, I did something or something's wrong or this guy's coming to kill me. But what else could be going on? Hey, maybe this guy's going to kill somebody else. That's a lesser evil, right? At least I'm not the target. That helps my nervous system actually calm down a little bit. Or maybe this guy, maybe this guy's just going crazy. He's not trying to kill anybody. He's just shooting his guns in the street and he doesn't realize that's a problem. Right. Or, maybe this guy is drunk and he's celebrating a little too much. Right. But you notice what happens in your nervous system as you start to entertain those other possibilities is my nervous system starts to relax because my amygdala lets me know of the scariest one, the most fearful one, which ramps my nervous system up. But as I go, hey, wait a minute, what else could be going on? I start to calm down a little bit. Right. But since there are a couple assumptions that are negative, that he's, hey, you guys, sorry, my cats. We have a new foster cat that we're housing for a while she's going through her court case. She was involved in a domestic incident, and so they removed her from the home, and our cats and them are having their own domestic incident. So anyway, sorry. So once I entertain different ideas here, my nervous system calms down and it helps me to think. But since there are a couple of those that really bother me, right? Then what I want to do is I want to go verify. So maybe with the guy with the gun, I'm not going to go verify that situation. I'm not going to insert myself into that situation. My verification might be like, oh my gosh, this guy's coming to shoot me. And it's like, okay, wait, no, he's not even really focused over here. He's kind of going down the street. You know what? I'm not going to insert myself into that craziness. I'm just going to call the police and get this handled, right? And then, but say with my wife, I work on those, but then I calm down, but then I go and I say, hey, are you angry at me? Did I do something or did I not do something? What's going on? And then she can say, no, I just had a really hard day with work. I had this client. Oh, okay, cool. No worries. Let's de-stress. Let's go do something, or she could tell me, yeah, I'm tired of you always playing your video games, not taking the trash out or whatever the situation is. Right. And so then I'm like, okay, hey, let's work on it. So that's a top down approach for anxiety, for a particular type of anxiety, assumptions, that type of stuff. And then one of the other top down approaches. So far we've got mindfulness, we've got distracting type of things, container exercises, things like that. Distracting exercises are kind of like if I have some anxiety going on, or I'm tripping on something in some way, I'm getting upset about something. I'll just, hey, I'm going to throw a comedy on and I'm just going to watch this comedy. I'm just going to totally lose myself and push this off to the side and distract myself. Those techniques are valid techniques for handling anxiety and pushing that stuff off. But that's very similar to that container exercise, though, is that I can use a distraction technique to kind of push things off, but eventually I want to stop when I get a chance to come back and go, hey, what's going on with me? What's happening? I need to process that, because I can't just keep pushing things at bay or repressing things. They're just going to get more powerful, stronger, and then they're going to overwhelm me, and I'm not going to be able to distract myself or push them away, and they're going to overtake me. One of the other ways, and this is kind of a top down, bottom up kind of area, and actually maybe let's go into that one last. But let me give you one more definitely top down approach. This one's called third person self-talk. So they did a study and they discovered that people who talk to themselves in their self-talk in the third person handle anxiety better, handle depression better, and are overall more successful in life. And so, and consequently, people that had imaginary friends when they were children tend to talk to themselves more in the third person. So now I wish that I, had imaginary friend when I was a kid, instead of making fun of the poor kid that did, because I didn't understand what was going on, because now he's more successful than I am. Third person self-talk. So, and this is all in your head, right? So third person self-talk, you use pronouns like us, we, let's. I may say my name, Brett, you, this type of language, like I'm talking to somebody else. First person self-talk is I, me, my, that type of stuff. So let me give you an example of how to use this. And everybody does both of these. You generally go into first person and third person, kind of back and forth. You may notice that you do, or you may not notice. You may be more specific to one or the other. You don't want to do this out loud. We don't want the guys in the white coats to come get you. So this is all in your head, but I'm going to do an example out loud. What you want to do is, once you recognize that, oh, wow, this actually helps me with my anxiety, you want to shift into third person self-talk and then stay there. And what we do a lot of times is we kind of go back and forth between both, right? So we kind of hover in this. But if you go into that third person self-talk and stay there, and then I'm going to explain kind of what's happening inside the mind and the brain as to why this works, the brain science behind it a little bit. So for the beginning, if you imagine this is my brain, hopefully my brain's bigger than that, but bear with me. So this is my brain, right? This is my neocortex, or the front part of my brain here. And the thumb represents my midbrain, or the limbic region. And the midbrain is the older part of the brain. It's much more survival oriented. That's the fight, flight, freeze center of the brain, the pleasure center of the brain. And what happens when we get upset or something bugs us or sets our nervous system off is consciousness and even blood actually withdraw out of that prefrontal cortex and focus into the midbrain. So there's less activity in the logic and reason centers of the brain. And the brain's much more focused on, hey, what does this mean about me now? And how am I going to survive through this, right? So for example, I'm going to give an example with anxiety that demonstrates that process. So say I got, oh my gosh, I got this airplane trip coming up. And last time I got on an airplane, I got really, really sick and I couldn't find one of them stupid bags. And I couldn't get out of the aisle and I threw up. And I got on this lady's dress. Oh, she was so pissed at me and I felt like such an idiot. And then the stewardess come and they had to clean it up. And they were mad at me. And this trip I got coming up's even more, it's longer. And God, I can't do it. And I want to see my friends and and my family, but I can't, I can't throw that money away, but oh my gosh, I can't do this. I'm going to come up with a reason I'm just going to eat it and come up with a reason when I can't go. I cannot do this, right? I am the anxiety, right? And I'm using a lot of oh, I can't do this. I'm so anxious. I am anxious. I am the anxiety. And then, and now to switch to third person self-talk in that situation, I usually do three things when I use this. I use this one myself. Most of these techniques that I teach, I've either done myself and used myself, or I've shared them with clients that have given me reports. Hey, these things, this helped me, right? If I share something with somebody that I haven't tried, and then I'm not getting any reports that it works or that they had success with it, I cut that out of what I teach, right? So what I do is three things. When I love this technique here, I use it a lot. I do three things. I get my attention by saying my name. I go, Brett, and then I say, it's going to be okay, or it's going to work out, or we're going to get through this. And then I go, breathe, right? And so, so say I'm tripping on this airplane thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do this and stuff. And I'm like, okay, Brett, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. Sometimes I'll even chant that first part. It's going to be okay. We're going to work through this. It's going to work out, like a Zen monk with a mantra. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Just breathe, right? Depends on how intense it is, right? And then I'll take a nice, big, deep belly breath. And we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. That's a bottom-up approach. And you can combine the bottom-up and the top-down approaches. So I say, Brett, hey, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. Now we know that we get sick on airplanes. We can do something about it. Maybe we can take some Dramamine so we won't get sick at all. Maybe we can figure out what to eat or what not to eat. So we're not vomiting a gallon of chicken soup all over everybody, but we can get through this. It's normal for people to get sick on airplanes. It's no big deal. Maybe when we get on the airplane, we can ask the stewardess right away, hey, can I get a couple extra bags? I get sick. They're going to give you the bags. They have them. They don't want you to get sick. They don't want to clean up puke. We know that's true. And then worst case scenario, if you do get sick, it's going to be in a bag. It's not going to be on anybody. No one's going to be mad at you. No one's going to be upset. It's just a thing. It's okay. And you want to see your family and you can't afford to throw that money away. We can do this. You know what? Maybe we can actually even stay up for 2 or 3 days before the flight. We'll sleep the whole way, but we got this, right? You feel the difference in the tone, right? And what is happening is it almost feels like I'm talking to somebody else who's having the anxiety problem, but I'm actually talking to myself. And what happens in the brain is that that consciousness and blood that have withdrawn into the midbrain, what I'm doing with that technique is I'm actually forcing my consciousness back up into my executive functioning, my prefrontal cortex, and I'm keeping it there with logic and reason. I'm saying, hey, Brett, I know that you're upset, but you know what? We're going to get through this because we can do this and this and this. And if this happens, we can do this and this and this. And we can't afford to do that. It's okay to do that. That's all logic and reason. And when I'm in my prefrontal cortex, my body can start to calm down, if that makes sense. For me, when I do this technique, it kind of feels like when I'm in the emotion, it's like I'm drowning in it. I can't get away from it. It's horrible. And we go, Brett, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. We got this. We can do this and this. It's almost kind of like I come up above the emotion just for a second. And then I have some space up here to think and to process. And it's like I'm above the emotion. And then I can start to calm the emotion down. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Let's breathe. you know, let's do some stuff that's going to help my heart to slow down and to do that kind of stuff. So that's a really good technique as far as a top down technique. I combine that though with a lot of bottom up techniques. So let's switch to some bottom up techniques and talk about some of those. Any questions about any of the top down techniques or those ideas at all? Nope, good, okay. All right, so I know this is probably a lot of information. I'm giving you as much as I can in a short period of time as I possibly can. So bottom up techniques. First one, you've probably heard about it, is breathe, right? The breath is actually connected to both our sympathetic and our parasympathetic nervous system, in the sense that it's something that we is out of our control, but is also in our control, right? So we can control our breath and we can do things with it, but if you try to hold your breath, you know, obviously at some point in time, your body's going to go, okay, yeah, we need oxygen, we're going to breathe whether you want to or not. But you can use the breath to start to activate and to apply the vagal brake. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with polyvagal theory at all. Read a little bit about it, Jeff, I'm sure. And I don't want to get into polyvagal theory. That'll take us down a road that is interesting. I suggest Googling that. Polyvagal theory, Stephen Porges. It's good information on the nervous system. But the breath is the way that it starts to send a signal to our body to calm down. Because even if I'm upset or I'm triggered, what happens naturally when something scares me is my breath comes into my chest and it becomes fast. I get scared like this. And what my body's doing is it's trying to oxygenate my muscles. It's trying to give me the ability to bolt really fast or to fight if I need to, right? But what I want to do is I may be in the supermarket and the thing that's causing me fear is there's just too many people there and that's uncomfortable for me for whatever reason, maybe something in the past or whatever, something I don't even know, but I start to have this response. I don't need to, you know, beat the old lady down in the macaroni aisle, right? I need to just figure out, whoa, let's calm my body down. So what I do is I take command of my breath and I start to go, Brett, it's going to be okay. Let's just breathe. And what I do is I take a big diaphragmatic breath as deep into my abdomen as I can. And I let my body just fill up with air. And I start to control my breath. And at first that may be really hard, right? I may be, it's hard for me to control my breath. But what I want to do is I want to go at it in a slow way. So let me back up and talk a little bit about breath. There's actually a lot to it. If you think about breath, we have an inhale and we have an exhale, and there's also the spaces between the breath that can become important too. But for now, let's just focus on the inhale and the exhale. If I keep my breath pretty stable, inhale and exhale at the same ratio, like say I breathe in for 5 seconds and I breathe out for 5 seconds. I breathe in for 5 seconds. My body will stay pretty stable. My nervous system will stay stable. It's like a stabilizing effect. But the inhale is connected to my sympathetic nervous system. So if I lengthen the inhale and have a short, powerful exhale, that will actually start to rampen up my nervous system and start to excite me and give me energy, right? So I do a lot of Tai Chi and Qigong, that type of stuff. There's another thing in yoga called the breath of joy or the yoga cup of coffee. So let me demonstrate that real quick for you so that you got that piece. But what it is you're generally standing. And what you're doing is you're doing a long inhale with a short, powerful exhale, right? So the yoga cup of coffee is just arms to the front, the side, the front, and then an exhale, right? So, and you can do like a step inhale where I inhale like 3 times, like so I'm like, or you can do one long inhale, depending on what suits you. I like to do a step inhale, so. What that does, I can feel my heart's beating a little faster right now. Colors are a little brighter. I'm taking in more information. My sympathetic nervous system has been activated a little bit, right? Not a lot like if something come in and like boom, crashed. That's a big elevation. This is a slight elevation that I'm in control of. So if I want to get energy in the morning, that's a good way to get energy. and to move my body. But you don't want to do this if you're having anxiety. Don't lengthen the inhale and shorten the exhale, right? And so, but on the opposite, if I'm trying to use that to calm my body down, then what I want to do is I want to shorten the inhale and lengthen the exhale. The exhale is connected to our parasympathetic nervous system. So if I do a long, drawn out exhale, what happens is that my heart starts to slow down and my nervous system starts to calm and relax. And there are signals sent to my brain and my body that, oh, everything must be okay. So we use this in martial arts a lot, right? So if I'm at the dojo and 2 or 3 guys are coming at me and they're about to attack me, I might be nervous for me, right? And so what I want to do is I kind of just take a big, nice deep breath. And that lets my body start to calm down so that now I can control the reaction and what I need to do. I can still use my executive functioning. I'm not just panicking, trying to get away. That makes sense. And the ratio that you want to use for the calming is a 1-to-2 ratio. So eventually I kind of like a 4 and 8 second, right? 4-second inhale with an 8-second exhale as the target that I want to get to. Of course, if I'm in a situation where I'm already going, I can't inhale for 4 seconds and exhale for 8 seconds. But what I want to do is maybe inhale for a second, exhale for 2. And it's this slow progression down into this exhale. Does that make sense? And so you can combine that third person self-talk with that breath control. So that's a way to do breath control. Another thing to do with breath control is to combine body movements with it, right? And so like you saw there, I did the yoga cup of coffee to excite my body, right? There are other body movements that I can do to slow my breathing and slow my heart. One of the things you can do is, let me know if where I'm at on time too, Jeff. I don't want to run over either. But one of the things that you can do is you have these nerves in your neck and your veins and your arteries in your neck called baroreceptors. And what they act as, it's kind of like a governor in a car, kind of controls the speed of what's going on. And so what happens is when your heart or your brain gets below your heart, those baroreceptors tell your heart to slow down. So if I get turned upside down, my body will start to slow my heart down because of pressure, right? And it's just a natural thing. It's like a brake. It doesn't take any thought process to create it. But what you can do is you can actually start to slow your heart down by getting your head below your heart. There's a lot of different ways to do this. Is everybody familiar with like child's pose from yoga? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Don't do any yoga, so no, I don't know any.
Don't do yoga. Okay, so child's pose is. Let me demonstrate child's pose real quick. So child's pose is this here. This can be like this too, but you notice that my brain's below my heart, and so and what that does is that starts to slow my heart down. What we do, we teach police officers, military, firefighters, and people to do this. But obviously, a police officer can't go into child pose in the middle of the street, right? Not safe for him. So what we do for the officers and stuff like that is we teach them, they get to a situation, maybe get their cruiser behind them or a wall behind them so that their back is kind of protected by and stuff. And then what they'll do is they'll have them lean on their knees this way. So their head's below their heart. And then this way I can still see. And then I can start to control my breath and my breathing. And the combination of that slows my heart down, slows my slow breathing, tells my nervous system to calm down. And that works very well. Another thing you can do too to kind of add to that is any kind of cool air that you can get a hold of, or a cold sink and get cool air on your face or your hands. One example that I have a client who she does get anxiety in the supermarket, really, really bad, crippling anxiety in the supermarket. And so what she does is whenever it starts to build, she wanders over to the frozen food section. And then she goes over to one of the freezers and she opens the freezer and she bends down and she starts to kind of look through the freezer stuff, gets the cold air on her face, controls her breathing, relaxes her body until she feels okay. And then she goes back to her shopping. And then she may shop for a while and then it comes back and she goes and she does it again. But she's able to go and do her own shopping. She gets through the store and the anxiety level for her, she says that it kind of, where it was a 10, where she couldn't shop. She had to have other people go get her stuff for her. And then now she says when she shops, sometimes it'll ramp up. She says it stays pretty low, 3, 2 or 3, and then she controls it, 2 or 3, and she controls it. Sometimes it gets up to a 5 if she's like in an area where it takes her a minute to get over there, but she's doing her own shopping now. So these bottom-up techniques work for her. Okay, let's see. Yes. 5 minutes? Okay. Okay, so let me give you 2 more real quick bottom-up techniques. One is a progressive tension muscle relaxation exercise. You can use this to help you sleep as well. And in this one, what you do is what I do is I start with my feet and my calves. And then on an inhale, I'll flex the muscles in my feet and my calves. And then exhale, relax them. And then I usually take another breath and relax. And then I'll move up to my thighs and my hamstrings. I'll tense them on the inhale and then relax them. And then put another breath in there. And then I'll move to my forearms, my upper arms, my back, my front, my face and my head, and then my whole body. Tensing on the inhale and then exhale, relaxing on the exhale. And by the time you get through the whole body, you're sending signals to your brain, hey, it's okay to calm down. We're going to get through this. Calm down. It's okay. You can combine all these with third-person self-talk, which I very much suggest. And then the last one is called pandiculation. Pandiculation is what we do like in the morning when you wake up and your body goes, and it feels really, really, really good. You can do this intentionally. And if you practice this actually intentionally, you'll start to notice that you do that kind of thing in the morning more often, which feels really, really, really good. And so with pandiculation, what you need to know is the difference between concentric and eccentric contractions. So for example, say this is a weight. And so the concentric contraction is when the muscle fibers with my bicep, the muscle fibers are shortening on the concentric contraction. And then as I lower the weight, they're lengthening under the weight. That's the eccentric contraction. And then with pandiculation, what you do is on the inhale, you contract the muscle. And then exhale, slowly lower the muscle. And then you want like a platform or something to rest it. And then right at the end of it, let everything totally go. And a couple ways to do this with your full body, this is the way I like to do it, is you can lay this way. I usually start with these. And I'll inhale. And then exhale. And plop. Inhale, exhale. Wow. And then vice versa. This is probably my favorite way, is the front way. Is inhale, and then exhale. And woo, wow. But you get the idea. Do 4 or 5 of those each side of your body, and you may discover that you become pretty relaxed. You can also use this for isolated muscles. Like if my shoulder's really bugging me for some reason or whatever, I can inhale that, and the weight of your body is pretty much enough. Or you can grab a weight, inhale, and then exhale, slow eccentric exhale, and then plah. And that sends signals to that part of the muscle to relax. And then also there's EMDR therapy. That's a kind of a bottom-up therapy that helps us to relax and stuff like that. There is a protocol for EMDR to work with phantom pain, which is what I was going to talk to you, Jeff, about the other day too, is doing some EMDR for like phantom pain stuff. I've been researching that. There is evidence that shows that it helps with that. So EMDR is kind of a bottom-up type of therapy that if you have phantom pain, definitely look into that. and go that direction. And then the last thing I've done, so I work for a company called Phoenix Rebellion Therapy. One of the therapists is having a Getting Through the Holidays seminar that talks about anxiety and stress at this time. That's totally free. It's on Zoom. If you want, Jeff, I could give you the link to that. It's free of charge. Anybody can come who wants.
Okay, that'll be great. And then I'll add it to the YouTube channel so people can link up to it.
All right, I'll email you the link and then you can share that. All right, thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, Brett. The one thing, there's a couple of things that I love that you talked about, you know, with pain. Early on, I had a discussion with my pain management doctor, and I, you know, up front told her, you know, there's thoughts of, I'd like to chop my whole hand off. And she point blank told me, she goes, don't do it. The pain's not in your hand, it's in your head, and it will always be there. So that is the things that I've worked very hard to overcome. And, you know, we go in cycles. We all have good days and bad days and everything. We've all been through therapy, physical therapy for our traumas and stuff. And when I was going to therapy, one of the first things we'd do would come in and they'd and wrap my hand in a heating pad to loosen everything up. And so I do heat great. A lot of people, you know, want to do the ice method and stuff, but that sends me to a 10. Especially if it's winter time and getting colder out. So at least for me, I don't want the numbing ice. Heat is a comfort. It's my little comfort blanket, and it will calm me down where, you know, I don't like to take the pills and stuff. So a lot of times I can get away with it. Most of the time, if I take a nerve pain pill or something, it's to get me to sleep through the night anymore, which is very rare. Another thing is activities. What is an activity that you love? And I'll pick on Paula a little bit, that she trains horses and stuff, and she's always taking people out riding. I want to bet, and she can just nod her head, that when she's out riding her horse and stuff, the pain level typically is going away and stuff. So find those activities that you love and do those activities. If you're feeling some anxiety or your pain level is coming up and stuff. That's all I have. I will post it to YouTube channel a little later today or tomorrow. And I want to thank Brett for coming on. And there might be another time down the road that we talk more about the phantom limb pain issues, because I think all of us amputees have that issue. I know mine goes up and down again. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it isn't. And so we'll go with that.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me, Jeff.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Nice to meet everybody.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll talk to you later.